Welcome to the Lived Experience Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tamia Ryan, and today we're exploring the personal journey of Dr. George Ackerman, and he's going to talk to us about his loss of his mother, Sharon, to Parkinson's disease and his experiences as a caregiver, and also provide some education regarding Parkinson's disease as well. This loss really ignited a fire in him to honor her memory, and I'm really glad that you're here today, Dr. Ackerman, to talk about your journey and your experiences.
I really appreciate your time and thankful to your audience for giving us this opportunity because although it's unfortunately too late for me and my family and my mother, it's not for all the millions still battling this disease around the world.
Thank you so much. And let's just get started as we always do. I'd like to just ask guests to start off by just sharing a little bit about who you are and your experience.
Sure. My name is, again, Dr. George Ackerman. I joke and say I'm Sharon's son because I don't think that today I would be the man I am or have had the success in my life if it wasn't for my mother's sacrifices. She was a school teacher and had a master's and kind of gave it all up to raise me and my brother. I myself, my background is I've always been an advocate. Before finding the world of caregiving and Parkinson's disease, I'm an attorney in Florida and Washington. I'm also a police officer. I'm reserved now, and my PhD is criminal justice, so I'm a professor of criminal justice. But a lot of my life before this world of Parkinson's awareness, I advocated for African American mothers who lost their loved one due to murder, West Palm Beach, Florida, and throughout the world. A lot of the time, as you might be aware of some of the listeners, a lot of time the family members are forgotten by the criminal justice system. So you might have a loved one who sadly and really heartbreakingly is lost, but then the family members become like secondary victims, and kind of correlate that to what I'm doing today because a lot of the time in Parkinson's community, they're often forgotten. And I know as a person who lost a loved one due to Parkinson, I feel still often not part of the conversation. So thankfully, we've been able to find togetherforsharon.com, completely free resource for people who feel alone like I did as a caregiver and my mother did as someone diagnosed. And we just put that out in her memory, but now it's kind of become really bigger than all of us.
Well, thank you for one, being an advocate just within the community and also being open to share your story. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about your mom and your relationship with her prior to Parkinson's?
Yeah, I mean, my mother still, she's not with us, but has always been my best friend. We spoke 24/7, had a very close relationship. Some people say they wish they had that. I don't understand anything different. But she was very caring, loving, independent woman. She had Parkinson's, we think, for 15 years, but never really shared it for the first 7. I think she didn't want to, in a way, burden the family, but I wish she had, because I don't think we could have done anything different. But maybe, introducing her to other people with Parkinson's might have changed her world, because she felt very alone, and that's the one thing I don't want anyone to ever feel is alone, because there's people like me. Although I can't bring my mother back, I'm still going to be out there fighting for a cure. So she was very, caring, independent. She really loved her family, she had 3 grandchildren. They're my children. And, it's tough because now we're coming to the holidays and she's not here. My daughter just had her 12th birthday, and my mother would have been a dream to have been there. So what Parkinson does is, if we'll get to, is kind of really not just life-changing, altering, but also devastating.
And again, I'm so sorry for your loss, and I know grief is a process, and it has its peaks and its valleys, and I know this is a challenging time. In your discussion, in your intro, you shared that you felt like your mom probably had Parkinson's for about 15 years, but really didn't open up to like the latter half of her experience with the disease. When did you or your family members first really notice that something may be different or something may be wrong?
Towards the 7th year, I mean, I heard the word Parkinson. I didn't even know it was a disease because they kept saying, and they still do, you don't die of Parkinson's, you die with it. And my mother had no other health issues, so who would have dreamed we would be sitting here today talking about
Mm-hmm.
this or not having her with us. So we kind of relied on that. Unfortunately, the fourth year before she passed, she had a lot of stiffness in her left arm. It started to get where it's life altering, where she couldn't cut food, but she was still able to live alone. She finally, after we tried several different things, we tried everything, not just several, but one day she went for a special trial. Unfortunately, when she got home that night, I received a phone call from New York from my father, and he said, "You got to rush over to your mother's home." And it was about 4 a.m., so I'm not sure what's going on or why. So I ran over there, found my mother moving her furniture out of her home, and I asked her what was wrong. And she said she thought there were Nazis inside that were going to harm her. And that's the first time in my life I even ever heard of delusions and hallucinations. And we discovered that that might have been a side effect of the medicines for Parkinson, but it was really something tougher than even the disease, which is tough enough. And we saved her life that night, they said at the hospital. But they also said, obviously that night going forward, the last 4 years was something that was a decline of health that I never even dreamed or saw in my lifetime. And I don't want anyone to have to go through that. She went from very healthy, walking 3 miles every few days, to cane for 2 years, and a walker for a year, a wheelchair, and the bed bound, all of a matter of 4 years. And we don't even understand why it progressed so quickly. And the big thing is that everyone's journey is different. So what happened to my
Mm-hmm.
mother doesn't necessarily mean it'll happen to others who have Parkinson, but it's important to discuss it and bring awareness to end it, hopefully through a cure someday very soon.
And thank you for sharing that. And can you provide the audience with just some general information regarding Parkinson's? And I know you mentioned that everyone's journey is different. What are some of the commonalities, though, that individuals that you could educate individuals on?
And I'll try to do it quickly because we don't have the time. But that's why I did write my book. It's called The Sun's Journey. And I did it just because we never have the time. You know, so many things from
Mm-hmm.
caregiving world to Parkinson's to awareness. It's just never have the time. So I didn't really want to write a book, but I was shocked. And I always challenge everyone to prove me wrong. But there isn't one son in the world, sadly, that wrote a book who lost their mother due to Parkinson's. And I was shocked. And that's what the reason I decided to write it. But the medical community, some believe there are 5 stages of Parkinson's. The first three are where you still can live independently, but you'll see the external tremors, like Mr. Michael J. Fox, who's a hero of mine, an actor from Back to the Future, and advocate. Also, things like rigidity, bradykinesia, and very stiffness of the body. Mild problems with posture and balance, difficulty walking, and even the facial expressions change. So it's amazing how it's not just, kind of one thing. I have major back issues, so it's just my back, although that's a nightmare too. But it's kind of, what it is. It's back, you have pain. Parkinson's isn't like that. As you move on, or the individual diagnosed from stage 2 and 3, we still don't know the timing, so it could be different for each person. But that's where symptoms like, independent living become a little more difficult. Tough to either eat, bathe, dress, sleep, and even walk at times. The toughest one, though, are stage 4 and 5, and that's where stage 4 is when it almost becomes impossible to live independently. And then the final stage, which was a year really for my mother, was where the delusions, the hallucinations, loss of smell, constipation, which we could talk for hours, and I never dreamt I would even be saying that. And finally, weight loss, poor reasoning, vision, and sleep. So you can see it's really not like a simple thing to discuss. It's just really
Mm-hmm.
the fastest growing neurodegenerative disease, so it really affects, the mind, the body, physical, emotional. And I feel like at times that I don't have Parkinson's, but felt like I had it secondary, because I was sitting there seeing it all, trying to help figure it out. And I know we didn't fail, but unfortunately, my mother's not here. So I do this in her memory to live on and through you. And even if we reach one person today, I feel we've
Mm-hmm.
changed their life forever for the better.
Yes, and I know that there'll be someone out there listening who has a similar experience or who's going through these challenges, and so I really thank you for going on platforms. And I know you also have your own podcast as well, where you provide education to others. Can you share a little bit about, I know you mentioned your book, your podcast. What are some of the other efforts that you have going on right now?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to show either, but I decided that there wasn't enough out there, and I actually interview people who have Parkinson's, advocates, medical doctors. I had Muhammad Ali's daughter did an interview. Also, Brett Favre, the famous football player, just gave a message the other day, and we had James Brown's daughter on, which was pretty incredible to have. So,
Wow.
it's the message is spreading, and I don't know if it's because of our work or because the disease is growing. I published a few books. They're all available on togetherforsharon.com, but we don't make anything on purpose from it. Any money we make, we've donated about $40,000 from my family to organizations like the American Parkinson Disease Association, Drive Toward a Cure, and Michael J. Fox Foundation. And, I don't really do this for anything. It's kind of makes me feel weird sometimes where, you have shows, not everyone, but trying to sell
Mm-hmm.
something or, but we don't want anything. We just want people to never feel alone. Again, the books are out there. I kind of didn't want to do it again because I didn't want to make it about that. But I think there's some important information, such as my caregiving, how important my wife and family were support. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to sit here today with you or have gotten through caregiving during my mother's journey. I also, after 2 years after my mother passed, the website was dedicated to her, but I realized that, and I didn't know there were 10 million people around the world who had Parkinson's, and that broke my heart again. So I decided to go on a mission where I interviewed 1,000 people around the world from England, France, Spain, Africa, Italy. I mean, you name it. Parkinson doesn't discriminate. And we just
Mm-hmm.
published two books, actually. They're online called Voices of Resilience. And the beautiful thing is, it covers other people's journey. So if you look, you'll
Mm-hmm.
see pictures of other people battling the disease. And now people go to the site, they're on the site for free. But I had a funny story where a gentleman wrote me and said, I spent 10 hours on your website, togetherforsharon.com. And I wrote back and said, that's amazing, but don't spend 10 hours. Like, I don't want, but I wanted a valuable resource out there for free where people can go to, find other people who are going through what they are, reach out to them. They don't have to reach out to me. It's like I feel like a little bit like a conduit, almost like a bus. We're all getting in
Mm-hmm.
together, and we're a family, and they can do, what they want with it. But it's just so important because we didn't have that when my mother was struggling.
Yes. And it's just amazing work that you're doing and being that support and a resource to others and meeting people where they're at that point in time in their journey. Can you share a little bit? I want to go back to your experiences as a caregiver and what did that look like? Because I can imagine as someone raising a family and having a profession as busy as yours, how did you manage this?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't manage it great. I always say the most important thing is to take care of your own health, and then also whether you're an advocate or a caregiver. I didn't do that either time because with my
Mm-hmm.
mother, she only felt comfortable when I was there. So I decided we don't know how long she have. We didn't know she wouldn't be with us, but I knew I wanted her to feel as comfortable as I could. So if I had to sacrifice a little, then that was fine. Then
Mm-hmm.
today, as an advocate, there's some days I joke where I leave the show, feel like a train rolled over me because I do this 24/7. I don't get anything, it's all voluntary. But I do
Mm-hmm.
feel in my heart that speaking again with you or telling her journey keeps her memory alive. And I feel like she lost 15 years alive due to Parkinson's and likely 15 years after because she was only 69. So in my weird world, I feel like we should be here till 85. And she just didn't get that opportunity due to Parkinson's.
Would you say that your advocacy work has helped you process your grief and in what way?
Yeah, I do think that without this and even talking to you helps me grieve. Also, writing books and things and putting thoughts down. The last year of my mother's life, I kept a journal, and it's in the book Son's Journey, which I never was going to share. But it actually goes, and we don't have the time, but I used to read a part of it. But it goes pinpoint, date by date, the last year of, when my mother called me, what happened, when I called her, all the things from the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's really something that I hope someday we make a documentary because it really needs to be out there. And again, I don't want anything for it. I just think that people going through that, you don't have the time, and you feel like you're very alone, and you're not. It's just very hard at those. You're juggling your health with your loved one, caregiving,
Mhm.
the bills, the medicines, the doctors, and it's just no time to find out if there are people out there to help you. And now through togetherforsharon.com, it's all out there for free and available.
What sort of advice, looking back, because you mentioned, as a caregiver, you were in the moment, so you weren't able to really practice self-care. You weren't really able to probably take care of yourself in the way that maybe you would advise others to now in the work that you do. What advice or encouragement would you give caregivers now that are caring for someone with Parkinson's?
Yeah, I mean, the most important thing, again, which I didn't follow, is you have to take care of your own health because then you won't be as helpful to your loved one. Also, if you
Mhm.
ever have arguments or fights in the past, forget them because now it doesn't matter. Your loved one is here. They need you now. So those are some of the most important things. And again, you have to research things, use togetherforsharon.com, speak to community. Parkinson doesn't just affect the person diagnosed. It also affects the family, the caregivers, the whole community in the world. And just lately, it's becoming even bigger in the world. I don't know if you know, but just a year ago, 3, 4 months ago, the United States finally passed called the National Plan to End Parkinson's Disease, which was really spearheaded by the Michael J. Fox Foundation. That's the first law in U.S. history, federal, to help support hope for a cure, awareness, in Parkinson's disease. I don't know why it took so long, but it has passed.
Mhm.
Then only
Oh.
a month later, the big debate with President Biden, if he had Parkinson's, that's not really the problem. It's just that it did help with awareness. Now people understood or heard about it. Then soon after
Mhm.
that, the famous actor Ryan Reynolds kind of discussed for the first time his father had Parkinson's, but delusions and hallucinations. Then a few weeks ago, Brett Favre, the famous football player, discussed it. So it's becoming like more of a household thing, which is sad in a way, but also
Mhm.
a positive because I think the more people who know about it, closer we'll be to a cure. And that's why I'm always so honored to be on shows like yours because, I mean, you are familiar a little with it, but I like going on shows where people, the listeners, don't know what it is and don't have it
Mhm.
because I feel that if they're now aware, we're really going to change the world for everyone.
Yes, and thank you for sharing that. I was just getting ready to ask you about any future research that you're aware of or any future developments that are in place to work towards a cure. And as you mentioned, it is becoming more pronounced because more people are talking about it and it's out more in the media, but it's something that everyday individuals have been unfortunately facing, for a long time now. Are there any misconceptions that you believe people may have about Parkinson's, and what education would you want to provide about that?
Yeah, some of the worst ones really are the old days where they said it's the elderly man disease, which is no longer
Hmm.
true. A big thing now, which is sad, and some of my best friends are in this category area, but people who are young onset Parkinson's. Michael J. Fox had it in his 30s. Well, there are people in their 20s, 30s, 40s also battling this, and it changes the world because obviously, if you're older, like my mother wasn't too old, but 69 is not that old to me, but she already
Hmm.
kind of finished her career and she was winding down and wanted to enjoy her retirement. She never got to. But these individuals were in the 30s, 40s, or young families, they just having babies with Parkinson's. There's so much
Hmm.
more, even female issues, which I'm learning because now I've had a lot of women on my show to bring awareness. But things just like hormones and just, areas of female body that now have to be addressed because they're younger people. The biggest thing we found, I don't know how, there's a little thumbs down, which is perfect
Oh.
timing. Actually, it's good. It is good. It's good timing for having that. But a thumbs up would be that, the more we talk about this, the better it will be in the society overall, people understanding. I was shocked when I had someone on the show and they were talking about being pregnant with Parkinson's. It hadn't even kind of crept up as a topic in my whole 3, 4 years. So honored to
Hmm.
be able to cover something like that because there are people, women out there or men, who want to know about these things, and there's not really much out there. And that's one thing I do as a researcher is I look for areas that aren't really being covered and try to tackle them. I'm finishing a book now it'll be out next year. It's about policing and Parkinson's, and I'm hoping to
Mm,
change the whole entire country in the world of law enforcement and policing, because Parkinson's disease is a involuntary movement disorder. So if you're pulled over by the
mm-hmm,
police and they don't know anything or even the word Parkinson's, it's not going to end well. Well, if they had this
mm,
word Parkinson's disease added into every academy and training in all of the United States, it'll change the world for both police and people with Parkinson's. And there's nothing like it out there, which again kind of disheartens me, but in the same way, it's important. I just hope we can, there's no way I can get to everyone. I wish every academy in the country would have it. I wouldn't even accept money. That's not what this is about. But till we get this book, which isn't even out yet, but April next, 2025, if we could get that in every single shelf of every police academy, it'll really change the world. And, as we get closer, I'll talk more. I have a lot of, not secrets, but findings that I didn't want to share yet. But, it's sad to
mm-hmm.
see that a lot of academies list dementia and Alzheimer's, but don't list Parkinson's disease at all.
And can you talk a little bit about the differences between Parkinson's and dementia, and Alzheimer's, if you have a little bit of time? Because I know that, as you mentioned, they does all get sort of grouped together. And can you break down a little bit what some of those differences are for listeners?
Yeah, dementia is something I, in a way, thought my mother might have had at the end. It's late onset dementia, and usually it's really just kind of deteriorating also of the neurological, the mind. That's where the delusions and hallucinations come, and those are, again, some of the most, frightening things there are. Delusions and hallucinations basically are where, if you imagine we're talking, and I believe there's a third person in the room, but they're not actually here. So it's like where
Mm-hmm.
you can't appreciate, unfortunately, at times the full access of your brain, and a lot of the issues that you were able to control, you're no longer too able to. My mother used to laugh a little, which was not always funny, but that her dog was in the room with us, so we giggled because we didn't really know what to say. But obviously, the
Mm-hmm.
dog had passed 20, 30 years ago, so it's very saddening disease. So Alzheimer's is very different. Also, more individuals have it, so there's more awareness for it. Many believe that's the area where you just don't remember. You could be with your best friend, your daughter, husband, and they don't even remember you at any point anymore, which is also kind of challenging and very tough. All these diseases, unfortunately, are life ending. Some, though, aren't really recognized. Like Parkinson's is not recognized in Florida still as an end of life disease, even though it did take my mother. So it's a lot more research and things and laws have to be changed to support those going through this and the families. But that's kind of the Cliff Note version, I believe.
Thank you for sharing that information. And sort of wrapping up here, just a couple of more questions for
Sure.
you. If you could send a message to someone who's just learned that a loved one has Parkinson's, what would you say to that person?
Yeah, I do have a little message I always say. I know we're wrapping up, but this is my message for you and everyone listening, and with Parkinson's, and if you don't have Parkinson's, to the caregivers, to everyone out there. I feel like I'm going to sing a rap song to everybody. We need some humming in the background, but we love you. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. I, along with the incredible Dr. Ryan, will advocate for you, and together I feel our voices are so much stronger. And I always say I'm just getting started, because every time I meet someone like you and your audience, or someone out there fighting this disease, or doing things like we had the honor last Saturday to go to Miami, and we went to an event called Punch for Parkinson, and it's actually a charity boxing event, and they raised a lot of money for hope for a cure and research for Parkinson. So when I see things like that, it kind of inspires me to keep fighting no matter what. And my main, advice is just never give up. Reach out to other people out there. If you don't reach to me, there are other individuals, obviously. If you go to togetherforsharon.com and scroll down a little, there's a little Christmas tree. It's a LinkedIn or tree link, and you can follow me on every social media. It's like 7 of them. I have no clue why I'm on them all. And I'm constantly
Yes.
trying to bring attention and awareness. And that's really my only goal. We can't bring, again, my mother back, but we can ensure together that this doesn't happen to other people.
Yes. And thank you for sharing your story. We will have all of your contact information in the podcast description so folks can follow you and share your information. We want to let caregivers know, and those that are experiencing Parkinson's, that you are not alone, that there is help and support. You don't have to feel ashamed or feel that you're a burden to anyone. Reach out for that support, reach out for that assistance. And I thank you so much, Dr. Ackerman, again, for taking the time out to talk with us, and hope to have you back on again soon as you release more resources.
No, I love that. And I always say, not only thanks to you and the audience, but this really conversation has to be shared. So everyone, please support Dr. Ryan's show, because this is not a conversation that just ends after we shut the lights and the cameras and the celebrity here, the paparazzi. We have to keep sharing it. We have to keep talking about it. The more awareness we bring to this important issue, I feel closer we'll be to a cure. So really, again, thank you and your audience for your time, and we send our love and support.
Thank you so much. And listeners, stay tuned. We'll continue to have more episodes on the way.